Welcome back, everyone. How was lunch? Well done. I trust the security lines were smooth for our silver guests that chose to leave the building. Gold and platinum, I hope you enjoyed lunch as much as I did. And now, a part of the program that's really important to us at The Art Of, because for us it's really about taking it back to work. And it's critical to hear from thought leaders because they stretch our minds. You know, like your mind is like a balloon. Once it's been stretched by an idea, it'll never return to its original shape again. And so that's phenomenal. But what we're about to bring out for you now is our executive panel. You'll see their pictures come up on the screen here in just a moment. And these are people that are doing what you want to be doing and what we believe you want to be doing. These are women that are in leadership roles now. And we're going to ask them to share their experiences with you. We're going to go for a bit of time, and then we're going to give you some time to ask them questions as well. And Richmond District School Board, are you guys ready? There's a couple of folks there that have some questions that are going to come to the panel as well. So joining me here on stage now, three of our executive panel members and an amazing team. Chris Wolff, who is the head of global OEM and IoT partnerships at Dell Technologies. Kate Ross LeBlanc, who is the CEO and co-founder of Saje Natural Wellness. You'll notice there was a gift from them on your seats when you came back from lunch. If yours isn't there, look at your neighbor. But we will ask you to hold off for those for a bit. And then a dear friend of mine, Heather Haslam, who is the Vice President of Marketing at ADP. So please join me in welcoming them to the stage. And so maybe, Heather, we can begin with you, if you'd be so kind, to just tell us a little bit about who you are and what brought you to our stage here today.
Sure. So Heather Haslam, I get to lead marketing for ADP in Canada, which is an unbelievable honor. ADP is a global company, and we're a leader in HR services and technology and services. And what that really means is we have products for businesses across the world, but I'm very focused on the Canadian market, that help customers use their people as a competitive differentiator. That's really at the core of it. And so it's HR, it's payroll, it's time and attendance, it's recruitment, a number of different products in the HR world, including talent activation, which I'm hoping that we'll talk about a little bit today. We're sponsors of the Art of Leadership. We have some of our ADPers here today and some of our cherished clients. Welcome. And welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for having me today.
Glad you're here, Heather. Thank you. Kate. Wow.
Woo! Well, I am so excited to be here in Vancouver, and the reason I'm here is because, you know, ever since grade 2, when the teacher would say to me, Kathy, stop talking so much, I mean, I got an opportunity to talk to all of you. They gave me a microphone, so that seemed like a perfect opportunity. But this has been my home for the last 25 years, started Saje with a dream of helping the world feel better naturally from my literally little kitchen table up in North Vancouver. When my passion for retail came together with my co-founder and my husband's need to address a lot of damage, soft tissue damage that he had, having paid his way through university racing motorcycles, and Western medicine just wasn't able to help him. And so he started researching natural alternatives to help himself. I had grown up in small town Ontario in my mom's fabric store where she always had a sense of bringing community together. So our two passions collided here in Vancouver at the kitchen table. It's where we started, and it's just such a privilege and an honor to be here in front of all of you today.
Welcome home, Kate. And Chris.
Well, you have to call me Wolfie, please. And
Fair
I hope
enough.
all of you guys will call me Wolfie as well. I'm Chris Wolff. I'm delighted to be here representing Dell Technologies. Can I have a quick show of hands? How many of you have ever used a Dell computer before? Thank
Wow.
you for your business. We are delighted to make some of the world's best computers, servers, and storage, but the company is transitioning to provide all kinds of digital infrastructure for the next generation of technologies that you will be using both at home and at work. So how many of you have many more digital devices after this holiday season than you did after last holiday season? The rate of things entering the world that are able to talk to the internet is growing exponentially, and we are creating the software, the compute, and the storage to allow you to harness that data coming from those things in ways that make work and play better and easier for all of us. So it's my lucky job to run the partnerships for Dell with the software companies bringing those things to life.
Beautiful. Well, yes, some recognition. And so, Wolfie, maybe I can begin with you. Based on your experience, what are some strategies that can help women achieve a more prominent role in their organizations?
Well, I think women have a natural ability to bring people together. And just about every industry is going through a massive transformation. I know in our world, IoT is a very emotional topic. When you say that word and you explain the Internet of Things, some people who are digital optimists lean right in, and they're super excited to get started. But you also have a fair number of digital pessimists who will make motions like this. I think we need more non-techies than techies in our industry, and particularly women who can help bridge the digital optimists and the digital pessimists and create a shared vision for what's ahead. So I encourage you to get familiar with technology. As a human being, you don't have to code, but get involved and get excited about it.
Thank you. Kate, what about in your world? How can we women get into more prominent roles?
Well, I think this goes for men and women, but there are a lot of studies that point to the fact that one of the most important things we can do to elevate ourselves as leaders is to raise our emotional quotient. So we know that we need a certain level of IQ, a certain level of technical skills to sort of get into the arena. But what can really propel us once we're there is having emotional quotient. So for me, this comes down to taking responsibilities for things, taking responsibility for what happens. It doesn't matter even if you were in the room, if you were in the building, if you were part of the project, you will notice that whoever steps up and takes responsibility, it's the ability to respond. Guess what they get? They get more responsibility. And the world is looking for people that are not shirking things, but are willing to stand there in the fray. The second thing that I like to talk about is our emotional maturity. And for me, this is the time we put between stimulus and response. So when something happens, if we're able to take a step back, be mindful, we don't have to respond right today, we can come back at it tomorrow, but to be able to give a measured response rather than going into reaction. And the third thing is around our self-awareness. So we can always be building on our self-awareness in our personal relationships, in our relationships with our peers. And lastly, the thing I think that really sets leaders apart is the ability to be able to draw these things together, to practice them every day, and to really elevate yourself, because the world needs more leaders.
Well, you're perfectly setting the stage for Dr. Tasha Urich's talk this afternoon, so I'm glad you're put that on your resume. Open for Dr. Tasha Urich. And Heather, what about in the world at ADP?
I'll start off with sharing that I think one of the most important strategies that we need to have is a trigger to remind us to get out of our own heads. My trigger is actually something that I wrote down in a notebook once. It was early on in my career, and I got exposure to this awesome, super strategic project. And it meant that I had the opportunity to, socialize for all intents and purposes and get exposure to quite senior people. And there was a meeting with the president of the business unit. We're in her office. There's a big board table. My boss's boss was there, not even my boss. And, it was early part of the planning, so we had done a review of the project, and then everybody was inputting in. And all of a sudden, I looked around and thought, wow, that was a really good thing that the head of sales just said. What's wrong with me that I didn't come up with that? Why didn't I have that perspective? Wow, everybody in this room must be thinking, what's wrong with her? It's her project. She should have had that perspective. Oh my gosh, I'm the most junior person by far. Everybody must be thinking, why isn't she taking notes? Why aren't I taking notes? Oh my gosh, so I get my book, I grab my pen, and I write down, I'm taking notes. And I totally missed it. And so one strategy is to get out of your head. Another thing that I've noticed is that really successful people don't ask for permission. They listen to Nike. They whether or not it's, hey, they tell you that they're going to their kid's Christmas concert, or they take a risk. I think the strategy of courage is really important. And then my last that I would say is around, we heard it a little bit this morning, and it's really about the management of fear. It's about finding your voice. Being okay with standing up and maybe saying something a little off, or that people might perceive as dumb. Getting to the point where you can have the fear of worst case scenario be smaller than the fear of not trying. Because that's my boogeyman, right? The boogeyman for me is the fact that I'm going to let the fear of failure, which we heard earlier is just learning, that's going to be bigger for me than what really tries to, propel me forward, which is the fear of not trying. I like this expression. I think about it all the time when I'm getting in my head and I'm letting that fear have a loud voice, that everything you've ever wanted is on the other side of fear.
Wolfie.
Heather, do you ever find that the half step is raising your hand, but the full step that we are loath to take frequently as women is asking for the money in exchange for the work that we're doing? And I don't know about you guys, but when I first went off to babysit, the parents said, well, okay, Chrissy, how much money do you charge? And I said, all together now, whatever you want to pay is fine.
Is that the last time you said that?
So I practice in the mirror. A good mentor of mine said, Wolfie, practice and say it out loud a couple of times so you don't scare yourself when you hear it coming out of your own mouth.
It's so powerful, though, what you're sharing with us, because my experience has been that fear is a gift from my ego, and it lets me know that there's a wound that I have that I still need to heal. And so my life coach, Catherine O'Gorman, she just shares with me that just lean in with love all the time. And so when I'm really clear on what my truth is, it's none of my business when anyone else thinks of me. And so how strong can we be? Catherine is an amazing woman. I'm lucky to have such an incredible coach. But Heather, coming to you, has your organization embraced mentorship and reverse mentorship? And in your opinion, what are the benefits, and do you have any advice on how to build and sustain a successful reverse mentorship program?
Sure. So the answer is yes. We do have a mentorship program, and depending on where you are in the organization, it looks a little different. Reverse mentorship, just to ground us all, is this idea that somebody more junior or less experienced has the opportunity to help, a more established leader. But something that we've been doing at ADP is actually reciprocal mentorship. So it's this idea of, two people working together to co-create what their goals are, and they work together. So it's more similar to kind of a group mentorship, but it removes the egos of, the all-knowing, the person who has the wisdom versus the person who needs it. And it also gets to trust much faster. So in any good mentorship relationship, you need to have trust. And, any good relationship, you need to have trust. But in reciprocal mentorship, what we're finding is, because you're both being vulnerable with each other early on, you can get that trust much faster. And, we all approach this a little differently. There are people that meet you and you can only lose their trust. That's kind of me. And then there are people who, you really have to build it up over time. But what reciprocal mentorship does is it allows two people to come together and work together to build that trust, earn it up front, and then keep it ongoing.
Beautiful.
And then in terms of tips, you said, hey, what are some things that make it sustainable? I think giving it a little bit of structure, giving it a beginning and an end. I was early on in my career with a mentor, and I was the mentee, and it was really valuable. And then it became a total waste of time, and we had to have one of those breakups, and that's difficult. So I would always suggest that you have a little bit of structure around beginning and end, as well as maybe a kickoff. Not everybody knows how to start these things, so equipping people with a toolkit and letting people know that it's only voluntary. It has to be judgment-free and sponsored. You know, one of the experiences that I've had is around this idea that people get intimidated around relationships that they don't know about. So getting senior leaders as well as direct leaders in the know on what relationships are working. And they don't have to know what's taking place. That's confidential. But to know that it exists is important.
There we go. Now, Kate, speaking of relationships, speaking of mentorship, you're in a family business. So what's it like running the family business?
You know, I get asked this a lot, but I grew up in a family business. I think every neighbor that I knew out in the farming community was probably in a family business. So in a way, I don't feel qualified to answer that question because it's all that I know. But I can tell you that it's full on, and I think about business really like a workshop. You know, if you are into growth, what better place to be than in a family business, because you can't get away from it. You know, everybody knows what's going on for you, and you're really called upon to, I think, you know, be the best of yourself. And so I'm really lucky that my daughter joined the business, and I feel like I'm in a definite reciprocal mentorship relationship with her. But I guess one of the really important roles that mentorship has played in my life, which has been outside of our Saje organization, and it started while I was still at the kitchen table. And speaking of sustainability, I have a peer mentorship group that has been together for over 20 years. It was originally put together as a pilot project from Simon Fraser University and the Resource Center for Female Entrepreneurship at Scotiabank. And the part that I want to tell you about that I think is so powerful and what I think has held this group together is that we come together to share stories. We don't come together to give each other advice, to tell each other what we think we should do. When someone has an issue, and we have a format for deciding who's going to get a coaching that day. But what happens is we think to ourselves, so you tell me a story about something that's happening, that's really on your mind, that's really raw for you. And we go around and say, Wolfie, this reminds me of a time, and we share each other's stories. And you can do this with your peers, with your friends. They say that you can elevate the quality of your life by elevating the quality of the questions you ask. So if you pull out those stories and get good at asking questions, you will really elevate your leadership. And I really can't imagine the path my life has taken without having these women in my life.
I will say it's helpful having a group like that, though, because you can speak to them ad nauseum, and if they get sick of listening to you, they will tune you out. But if you bring this home, eventually your family's going to say, look, Mom, had enough of that. Just get over it. So creating a little bit of separation of church and state, I think, is good at the work front and the home front.
But even, what you're sharing with me makes me think about, oftentimes I struggle with really what are the differences between men and women. We're human beings. Let's just be human beings. And then I think about it, and, if you were in a room of men and you shared your challenge, every one of them is going to tell you what you should do and give you advice, which is crap, which is garbage, which is not useful in any way, shape, or form. But how can we learn from a story generation? Share with me your story and what happened and what did you learn from that? And then what can I learn from you and how can I behave differently then? Now, we've talked about mentorship, we're talking about family, and we're talking about helping our people grow. So, Wolfie, I'm coming to you, speaking of family, because I hear that your daughter has got her first job in the tech industry. And what are some of the pieces of advice that you've shared with her, and what would be relevant to share with our audience here today? We've got a large group from EA Sports and Tech and Dell here.
I think we also have quite a few students, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
All right. Hey, guys.
Richmond, is that the best you can do? Come on, I lived in Richmond.
There we go. So, Richmond, I'm going to speak directly to you the way I speak to my daughter and her friends, who I think of as my daughters. Many of you are going to be interested in being pro athletes. You may want to go into interior design or fashion. You may want to be a makeup artist. There are lots of jobs that you may want to do that are passion projects, but they frankly just don't pay enough money for you to be able to enjoy the benefits of what you're doing. My daughter came to me and she was going to take an internship unpaid with a fashion designer in New York City, which was a dream come true for her. And it may have been these very shoes. I took off a pair of expensive shoes and said, here, put these on. Said, if you go work in fashion, you'll make enough money that you'll only envy the fashion. But if you go into tech and apply that to the fashion industry, you'll make enough money to buy the fashion. So she graduated. Now she's working in, she's got a headset. She's dialing for dollars. It's not easy, but she's learning. And by the way, she's a sociology major. So don't think you need to learn how to code or have a computer science degree to get into our industry. We need all of you.
There we go. Thank you. Thank you. Kate, changing the subject a bit here, how do you find purpose and happiness in the work that you're doing every single day?
Well, I think about, particularly I think for women, we have so many hats that we wear, so many things that we juggle. And when you think about the change, think about, the oldest ancestor you have. Think about your grandmother. Think about maybe your great-grandmother. And think about the world that they grew up in. And now fast forward to the world that you are in. It's actually an enormous amount of change that has happened in such a short period of time. And so I think that so many of our rituals and our habits and our ways of looking after ourselves and each other have, it's like we put it on hold. And so what excites me about, what I do is the mission of our company to give people permission to take care of themselves, to give them ways to bring mindfulness to that. Because I really believe that that's the way that we kind of bring all of ourself back inside of ourselves so that we can actually give more. So that we're not running on empty. And that job will never be done. So for me, I get up every morning and, our mission is to connect people with the healing power plants, but I really do think about that. Like that really does light me up. And so it's pretty easy to stay connected. And I guess the second part of it for me is the people. I actually think about them almost like the beauty of plants. I mean, the beauty of the men and women that I get to work with, just, they put gas in my tank every day.
Well, you certainly brought happiness to us. I'll clue you guys in. Before we came out on stage, certainly we all had a little butterflies. And Kate put some peppermint halo on the backs of our necks.
Yeah.
And it's totally, calmed us, got us out of our heads. So thank you for that.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's what I live to do. It's what I love to do when I see that light up. And it's, you feel great because your body knows what's good for it. You said that, and I said that's because your body knows that, you're going the right direction here.
So Heather, aside from Peppermint Halo, what are a few resources that you'd recommend to someone looking to gain insight into becoming a better leader?
I would say this is an important resource, and so that's a good one, yeah. In terms of resource to become a better leader, my most important resource is actually what I think of as my own personal board of directors. Similar to you, although it's not a group that's been established, it's my group. And over the years, I've established them. So similar to friends, you don't have one friend that serves all purposes. And I've been able to acquire a group of folks, a past boss, my brother's certainly on that team. I have this group and I cultivate those relationships. I invest in that board so that when I need them, they're there. That's an important resource. Certainly mentorship. We've talked a little bit about that, jumping in, regardless of the format or the role, being open to mentorship. I've gotten tons of value even when I've been the mentor. People think, oh, well, that's just an investment of your time. It's worthwhile. I found myself a number of times doing wow, this thing that we're talking about really resonates, and it's, helping me with something that I'm dealing with right now. That's an important resource. I think of feedback as a resource. If you can surround yourself with people who are up for giving you feedback. I always think that, there's sometimes a gap between my intent, it's mine, I know what my intent is, and the impact. And when I'm with people and I get that input that helps me understand that there's a gap between the two, I'm better able to bring them close together. And then, a last resource, I would be amiss if I didn't say, and we heard it again a little bit this morning, is this idea of knowing what your strengths are. So I think of my strengths, I'm a connector and a provider, by the way, those as a core of my resource. And so you can find out what your strengths are by paying attention to what you love doing, what comes a little easier, talking to your people. Marcus Buckingham, you can read a book, Standout 2.0. There's an online assessment. There are a number of different ways, but what I'm finding is, as a resource to know what makes me special and what makes me unique, allows me to be a better leader, but also a better me.
Wow. You really make me think. I mean, I must admit I do enjoy the movie Jerry Maguire. And there's a famous quote in that movie, which I think is such crap. And from a personal relationship perspective, it's like I can't even go there. But from a business perspective, and I think what Emily shared with us this morning as well, it really just sort of proves the point. The quote from the movie is, "You complete me."
I thought you were going to say, "Show me the money."
Oh, yeah, that would be good too. Yeah, that would be good.
I was hoping for that too.
Now we're getting the sense of where we're going here with this conversation. We're going to actually
had
bring
me
the
at
house
hello?
lights up here as well, but let me just finish and clarify that. What I mean by that is that, one of the lessons I learned from some of the amazing women leaders that I've had in my life is that, I need to be aware of my strengths and to work hard to be okay with those. But even more so, I needed to be aware of my limitations, or, if you will, my weaknesses. I started off being a banker. I really wanted to be a banker, and I realized I love money, but I suck at math. And it wasn't a good combination. And so what I've done is I've surrounded myself with people that are much smarter than I am, that know better how to do it, and that look really differently than I do. And it was quite an interesting struggle as I went from being married to my wife, to being a gay man, to being here with you all today. It's like so powerful. But I think about those lessons I learned as a child. And so I would love if you could bring the house lights up just for a little bit. And Christy, I believe you have a couple of special guests for us. Are Amy and Reagan there for us? Can you bring them right up on stage? I would just love it if you could bring them right up on stage from Richmond School District. They've got a couple of questions. And I'm going to go down into the audience, and if you want to bring them right on up here, Christy, that would be great, and let us know who they are. Come on, run on up, you guys. Here we go. It's a great afternoon. Awesome. Thank you. Let me grab a mic.
Come join us.
Yeah.
Welcome.
So let us know, who are you?
Hi, I'm Amy Leung from McNeil Secondary.
Hold on one second. Heather, can I just steal your mic for a second and try that?
I'm Amy Leung from McNeil Secondary School, and I was just wondering, what situations of gender bias have you experienced, and how did you overcome it?
Amy, I have one I'll share with you, which isn't that long ago. The company I worked for at the time sponsored a pro golfer on the PGA Tour. And as the head of marketing for the theater, I was going to host 9 clients to come play golf along with 3 executives from our team. And as I was waiting for the golfers to come out and have cocktails and dinner, time was racing by. I said, "Where is everybody?" They said, "Well, they're in the bar." I said, "Well, where's that?" They said, "It's in the men's locker room." So I said, "Well, truth be told, I'm paying the bill, so we got to figure this out." So you're not crazy if you run into these things, but I think keeping a sense of humor but staying true to yourself, you can get through them and people will support you. Turns out the pro golfer came out and collected me, brought me into the men's locker room. We had a great time.
And Reagan, go ahead.
Hi, my name's Regan, and I'm a grade 11 student at McMath. And then my question was, because you are all successful women, do you feel that there is more pressure on you to continuously succeed? And then if yes, is that pressure mainly from yourself or from others?
Heather.
The answer is yes. I put pressure on myself to succeed. I'm getting a little more comfortable with the idea that I get to define what that success looks like. And I get to be focused on what makes me happy, and that's success. We heard a little bit this morning around this idea that you can't follow somebody else's scorecard. It really resonated with me because success for me is a state of what are the things that allow me to use my strengths, to be happy, to be grounded, to be healthy. So that comes from within, without question. The answer is yes.
Can I ask you guys a question? Do you feel that same pressure? I mean, you're at school, you're in sports, you're living your life with your families. Do you feel that pressure?
Yeah.
How many of you, this is particularly for the girls, but maybe also for the boys and men, how many of you have been told that you're very good at something? Often girls are socialized when they're young, they're told they're good at something, and they learn very early to keep being good at something. And if you're not good at something, then you're bad at that thing. And you'll start taking fewer and fewer risks in order to always be good at everything you do. It takes a lot of bravery to be bad at something, but being bad gives you a chance to get better. And Dr. Heidi Halverson from Columbia University wrote some great research. And the Girls Who Code organization has written a book called Be Bold. I encourage you guys to be bold. Don't worry about being good at something. Just worry about getting a little bit better at more and more things so that you broaden your outlook.
And one of the other things that I'm so aware of, I mean, we're all living in the social media age. When I was your age in school, that wasn't a thing. But I know you are living very public lives. You're living more public lives than many celebrities did, you know, probably 50 years ago. And so one of the things that I always remind myself, and I talk to my daughter about this and our teens, is to not compare the inside of your life to the outside of other people's lives. Because we will always make up that, you know, they're better, more successful, because we know all our own insecurities. And so to really work on keeping ourselves referenced and not worry about the gloss that's out there. So don't compare the inside of your life to that exterior that you see in other people. That always helps ground me.
So there's a short conversation with some future leaders. So let's hear it for Amy and
You guys
Regan.
are awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Cheers. And so, who's got a question for the panel? Hands up and just let me know, I'll run to you. Hi and wave, thank you.
I'll give it a go. Hi, my name is Tim Clark, and I've spent the last 30 years in the real estate construction industry, which is, of course, a very male-dominated world. One of the things that I really try to do, and I've really sort of grown into my career, is to take a very strong role, hopefully, in mentoring young women. It's very important to me because I really truly hope that half of them don't ever have to experience what I experienced in developing my growth in my career. But the question I have for you women is and our guests is how do you convince those young women that they have the power to make a difference?
I have to tell you, I haven't had much trouble convincing young women, but I have had a lot of trouble convincing middle-aged women. Young women are sort of, you come out of school and sports and you have a lot of energy. I think it's once you've had maybe your first child or your second child, you realize that it's tough to, if you're nursing or if you need to be home to take care of somebody or get them to wherever it is, it can be easy to put yourself last and put everybody else first. And if that's a choice you make, that's a great choice to make. And I would invite you to come back into the workforce because the common sense that you have and the ability to juggle and make shrewd decisions is something we need in industry very badly. There's a talent shortage. The unemployment rates are low. Please come out of hibernation and join us again.
I was just going to add that, on that point, when I think about new moms coming back to the workplace, I force myself all the time to make sure that I'm making that individual mind shift because they are amazing. And just like Wolfie said, they're not necessarily putting themselves first. When I had my first son, I was part of a mom's group, and we kind of handed the baton around every week and answered a different question. And one week it was, what have you done for yourself this week? And everybody just passed the baton, and nobody said anything. And it was a trigger that, you know, we do forget to put ourselves, and that we do have that. But, you know, I'm uber impressed by the amount of organization skills, the amount of focus, the perspective, the loyalty from, you know, women that have just come back. So I think that that's super important. And I think to answer your question, try to be the role model, right? Rather than trying to convince, I see this with my kids, right? Read, they're not reading. How about they just see me pick up a book every once in a while and read? So, you know, I try to push myself to be the role model.
I think for me, one of the things that we talk about at Sage is this notion of vulnerable leadership. And again, in this idea that you look at other people and think they got it all together, they're never going to be afraid. You shared you were nervous backstage, and I was like, you're not nervous. You know, we always think that and so I think that from the vulnerable leadership, it's like sharing with women that, you know, some of the fears you had, telling your stories, you know, your screw ups, the things you messed up, and you're still, you know, they didn't take you out in the street and kill you, you know. So I think when people go, oh, you know, she was afraid, she was, you know, and that really helps people, because I think people think you have to feel no fear in order to do something, and, you know, any of us that have been around for a few decades know that that's certainly not the case, or we would never get out of bed.
Panel on your right.
Hi, my name's Rona. I guess I'm looking for some advice on this question. We have a recent situation at work. I have a strong personality, and I've been told my entire life I kind of need to back off. The other day, I had a team member who left the office. She was very upset. She felt that one of the coworkers was being a bully and was making her feel useless. And the story I heard was, well, not the story, but what I was told was that she really just needed to listen to the message and not the tone, because that's the way he is. What is your advice for women who are told that they can't behave the same way a man behaves? And how do we deal with those men?
I think you're gonna jump in there.
So Rona, the first thing I would tell you is never, and the rest of you women, avoid 360s, because you will be held to a standard that's different than men are held to. There was a famous case study where they took Columbia Business School kids through a case study with one woman named Heidi. They took the name Heidi and replaced it with Harold. The business school kids said they didn't want to work for Heidi. She had a secondary agenda. She wasn't going to go very far. She pissed people off. Harold, really a go-getter. I think I want to work for this guy and be on his team. So implicit bias is real. That said, I believe that you need to listen to the people and believe them when they have concerns, and then bring those concerns into a structured environment and deal with them in a very matter-of-fact way. And there's a lady named Denise Massinio who's written a book that's called literally You Can't Make This, You Know What, Up. And she tells as an HR professional the difficult situation she's had to deal with where you had that implicit bias in play and how they resolved it. And then secondarily, what the legal implications were when they handled it poorly. So I think of it first from yourself, you know, recognize implicit bias is real, help your colleagues, male and female, understand that, but recognize there's a legal implication to any kind of a situation that sends somebody off in tears.
And panel, sadly, your last question from the audience is right here.
Hi, thank you. My name's Rebecca, and I just want to thank you. You guys have really great energy together on stage, and it's awesome to see a room, yes, fist bump. And it's awesome to see all the engaged women in the room, but what I feel like I'd love to see this time next year is have half this room be filled with men. or 3/4 of the room filled with men. So my question is really not about, yes, congratulations, not about preaching to the choir so much, but maybe about building allies with our male coworkers and our male subordinates and our male supervisors, and how to do that in a way that really doesn't alienate them, but makes them feel empowered to demand the kind of change that we're looking for. Thank you.
That's a tough one. So thank you for the vote of confidence on the energy. I appreciate that. I find that regardless of the gender, again, I'm going to default to something that I said earlier around strengths. We have inherent strengths, and sometimes there are more masculine, traditionally stereotypical, strong, boisterous, take up space, those strengths that we think of as more masculine, and then there are some that are feminine. And regardless of where they are on some ridiculous spectrum, it's about who we are and what it is that we bring. I have 2 little boys, and I focus very much on trying to teach them that it's not about the fact that they're boys, and I do try to teach them about the roles and the responsibilities, but that they have to find the individual piece that is within them that makes them special.
So, and this is why it's important to me to be here with you today. Yes, I'm a man hosting the Art of Leadership for Women. I get the irony.
I love it.
But at the same point in time, I'm a champion, I'm a sponsor, I'm an ally, and we need to engage men so that we stop holding people back and we understand, because the thing is that the unconscious bias is something I get excited about now, because what it's telling me is that I'm ignorant and I need to learn. And so help me learn how my thought was holding you back, and how can I think about it differently so that we can be successful. So here's my last question to you. Wolfie, I'll start with you, and then we'll come over Heather, and then Kate will have a similar question, but slightly different. A year from now, if we were successful here today, what 1 or 2 words would you share that would prove we were successful?
Brave, inclusive, interactive.
Beautiful. Yeah, recognize.
Yeah.
Recognize. Heather, a year from now, what's success?
I'm going to say conversation, collaboration, and encouragement.
Courage. Courage. And so, Kate, we're here together a year from now. People have a product on their tables, at their seats. Take us through a year from now.
Well, for me, every day, I told you, is about helping people feel better. And so I have a mission for the world to reach for natural first. So I'm wondering if you would all help me kick this mission off, get more momentum going here in Vancouver. Anyone got their peppermint halo? Gonna hold it up for me? All right, so I want to see a show of hands if you have used Peppermint Halo before. Okay, it's my home city. Thank you for doing me proud. So I won't even, who hasn't used Peppermint Halo? Okay, well, we're gonna have an experience here together. So I want you to just run your hand around and take that cap off and get into the good stuff here and pull out your Peppermint Halo roll-on. And so you've got the roller side up. And so just take a little smell first of all. Take a big breath in. You know, your body is attracted to that which is good for it. So if you start to feel yourself feel a little bit relaxed, you know that you're heading in the same direction. You know, you never take a walk into the forest or into the park and think, oh, I think this is bad for me. So now what we're going to do is you're going to, anyone here familiar with or ever experienced that feeling of tech neck? You know, we're leaning into all of these devices you're helping bring out into the marketplace, And, I don't want to see us like start to reverse, our postures here too much. So this was formulated and is licensed in Canada as a headache remedy, but over the years it has also evolved to really help people with these tense shoulders and neck pain that we have. So if you've got long hair, let's expose your necks here. And let's give yourself a nice, generous roll. Get down into these trapezius as much as you can. Your muscles are going to thank you. I know my co-presenters here, they're ready for another. The thing about products that are natural also is you want to be using them. Oh, yeah, let's get in there.
I was pulling my hair back.
All right. So things that are natural, actually, you can use them quite regularly because they are what's called volatile substances, which means that they move quite quickly. So they move into your body just like if you eat a piece of fruit. Do you ever notice you eat a piece of fruit and 20 minutes later you're hungry again? It's because it's natural and your body brings it in and releases it and uses what's good for it. So while you are now in the aroma of peppermint is stimulating, bringing circulation. Rosemary is speeding up the process. Lavender is calming down your nervous system. I think it would be a good time for us to just put your peppermint halo down, close your eyes, put your feet flat on the floor, unencumber yourself. Take some big breaths in. Help your parasympathetic nervous system. Release any fears you have, any anxieties. And I want you to think about all of the learnings that you've had today, whether it was in a conversation with someone beside you, whether it was someone here on the stage that you heard, and really lock in what is the one thing that you are going to take and do and actually action that is going to bring you more fulfillment in your life. Something you're going to do, something you're going to stop doing. What is the one idea? If you leave here with one idea and you action it, you will have propelled your life forward. Take those nice big breaths in, smooth out the jagged edges. And I hope the next time you're feeling some stress, feeling the start of a headache, feeling that tech neck creep on, needing some extra energy at 3 o'clock, that you'll help me with my mission to make the world a healthier place and reach for your peppermint halo. Thank you.
Beautiful. Your executive panel, Heather,
Woo.
Kate,
And
Wolfie.
I feel like there's something else exciting happening today here. I feel like somebody has a birthday. Is that true?
I didn't know that.
Woo! Happy birthday! I feel like we need a big round of applause for
Thank
a
you, thank you,
moderator.
thank you.
Their song.
We could sing.
Yeah, no.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Bill. Happy birthday to you.
Oh,
And many more.
thank you so much. Thank you so much. My gosh. Thank you. And now I know at 56 I can still blush. Thank you so much. The executive panel, thank you. Wow. And so we have a couple of things to do just to get these chairs cleared away to get our next introducer up and our speaker on. But Kate asked you to think about what was that one thing? What was the biggest thing that was the greatest impact for you so far today? This morning I challenged you to meet 2 and to get 1. So just right now, just take 2 minutes really quickly, turn to your neighbor and share with them what's your one key insight from today? What's the one key thing you're going to take away? Quickly share with your partner. I'm rolling the video. I'm rolling the video and not a piece. You. Okay. For Tasha.